right, so we are starting on time our Exportia Lab, and the topic today is accessing EU funds as a non-Europe-based business, and it's quite a popular topic. Everybody's welcome joining the session, whether you're on LinkedIn or you're on Zoom with us. I just would like to start by acknowledging Aborigines Australians, and so in the spirit of reconciliation, Exportia acknowledges the traditional custodian of country throughout Australia, land and sea, and their community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present, and we extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island peoples today. So now we are ready to start. So I'm Christelle, for those who don't know me, particularly the ones on LinkedIn. I'm the CEO of Exportia, and I'm your host of the Exportia Lab. We've run a really good number of sessions now on different topics there. High impact webinars about the European market and how to boost sales. And we provide European business development with my team. We've worked with about 100 plus non-European businesses in business development in Europe. And we work in sectors that most of you are from. So green tech, ag tech, the medical device and healthcare sector. We work with electronics, cloud, AI, digital, mobile application in the IT side, but also advanced manufacturing. Some of you are from that sector today, machinery, and also safety and cybersecurity. So I've asked our guests that I will introduce in a second to look at EU funding from that side. So we're going to have an interview today about EU funding, and we are super lucky to have Antonia Loncar, who's based in Belgium, close to EU, close to the EU, right? Close to the... I was going to say close to God, but no, maybe not.
Oh, no, let's not go there.
No. So Antonia Loncar brings a wealth of experience in EU affairs and strategic planning. She has 14 years of experience as a communication specialist with extensive experience in strategic and EU communication. She's worked for the EU, and she's working for the EU for boutique consultancies, for NGOs, for startups, but also for the UN. And so I'm very honored that you're joining us today and that you're sharing your experience with our audience.
Christelle, first and foremost, a big thank you to you and to Exportia team for this kind invitation. I'm really happy that following our in-person meeting back in beautiful Sydney, we are now continuing the discussion and bringing Australia and EU closer together. Despite the time differences, good morning to you and good evening here. It's just before midnight, but I'm super excited. And I hope that our discussion today will motivate and inspire the companies that are listening to this webinar to explore EU and public funding and see how it can foster their own businesses.
Right. Excellent. All right. So Antonia and I just worked on this structure for our next 30 minutes. So we're first going to have a Q&A. I'm going to have 4 questions for Antonia. She's also prepared some examples for us, and we have not made it specific to Australia. We've made it broader than that. So, and then after that, once we've done that, there will be some questions that it will be open for questions. So I think we're ready to start pretty much. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. And so basically, Antonia, is it really possible for a non-EU based business to tap into EU funding? Are we dreaming, or is that reality? Can we make it reality?
You know, every reality starts with a dream. So I
Yeah.
would say it's an absolutely a dream that can be brought into a reality. It's not a simple and straightforward journey or a straightforward yes or no answer. Let me preface by saying that. And I would like also, before we really dive into it,
Yes.
explain that what we are talking today here about are the EU funding. So the funding that are available by the European Commission and European Parliament at the level of the 27 member states. However, there might be on a bilateral level different types of opportunities that come at each of the national level state, which is something we are not going to be looking into today, but it's something I would invite companies, especially those that are already maybe present in some of the member state markets, so maybe in France, maybe in Germany, maybe in Belgium itself, to look into those opportunities as well. So in cases in which some of the countries, for example, like Australia, are specifically mentioned in a EU call that as an eligible country. In those specific cases, it can happen that the Australian companies are directly eligible. However, that will be specified in the text of the grant, or how they are called here officially, call for proposal. However, more often than not, the opportunities will lie for the companies, whether they are international in Australia or USA, or maybe in some other markets, rather through indirect involvement. Indirect involvement can come through different shapes and forms. For example, it can be that the interested company is a part of a project consortium, as for example, the subcontracting company that maybe helps with the support on a specific matter. Or even more often than not, it can be a matter of providing expertise. So maybe a company CEO can be involved in the project in as a person providing strategic and advice, being maybe providing guidance, being maybe a coach, mentor, or trainer. And in that specific case, his or she's CV and involvement will be directly part of submitting proposal.
Yeah.
So
but the expert will be then engaged by the EU companies that are, submitting the tender, but they'll be just subcontractors as an expert coming in bringing their unique knowledge and expertise.
Exactly. And actually, it's something that, in a way, opens many opportunities, even if we are talking about being engaged as an expert on a project. For maybe specific number of days or specific tasks, it still brings the involvement directly with the project and with the project consortium, with the European Commission. So it definitely brings visibility. It puts a company and the CEO or whoever, whatever the expert role has in the company on the spot, and it definitely provides a direct insight into both administrative and procedural part of implementing a public fund, as well as the one of understanding and how this public specific project is supporting a bigger policy that the Commission has on its plate.
So that means that they are also as subcontractors part of the reporting process and part of the as such.
Yes, but in a much more simplified procedure. So I can reassure those listening, because I know when the companies hear subcontracting, they hear administration and forms, it's always much easier. But yes, it is expected, but on a smaller level, as it is led by the project consortium itself.
Okay, thank you. So I have a second question. So our audience, they're more, in technology, innovation, they're all of our customers are advanced manufacturing. So in those areas, are there, in the EU funding, does the Commission have specific areas of focus that could be of interest to our audience today?
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
yes, I was just as you were mentioning before, the different
Yep.
areas in which
Yeah.
the Exportia's clients are operating in. And while we were getting ready for this session as well, I can say that there is a really strong alignment with the clients that form part of the Exportia community, as for example, the green tech is absolutely
Yes.
one of the priorities of the Commission.
Okay.
Actually,
Yes.
the whole sustainability pillar is in one way or another reflected both across the Green Deal. The Green Deal is really a flagship program of the European, I would not say the flagship program of the European Commission that aims to support sustainability across the sector. Furthermore, I would also add to it the fact that, for example, the sustainability, each and every funding that's obtained or that's every call that's launched
Yes.
for grantees has to include element of sustainability
Okay.
of the project.
So that's a baseline that if you're gonna want to get any funding from the EU, you have to have that piece in place.
Absolutely. And when
Okay.
we talk about sustainability, we are not only talking about, I'm going to really simplify, like not printing and going fully digital, but also about sustainability of the project per se. So how inclusive it is, how diverse, or how it is reflectant of other sectors or that touches in directly or indirectly through its activities. Then the another sphere that's very important is AI. It's a magical world, a word of 2023-24, especially though in the context of the cybersecurity as well. For example, in the European Commission polls, that's especially reflectant on everything that's related to the fight against disinformation and citizen education. Also then the digital, that's one of the pillars, the digital access, bridging the digital divide, providing digital skills, because you might know, Christelle, as well, that there is actually this huge discrepancy as we move forward between digital literacy of the certain groups. And of course, health. That's a bit result of the corona pandemic. So it's health really focused on research, on fostering and enabling cooperation between universities and companies that operate in health in order to be able to provide the latest, particularly digital tools into the health research.
Okay, excellent. And so just to talk to the audience as well, so our audience and people on this call, they're small and medium-sized businesses most of the time. Some of them are startups, but some of them, you know, are to the, you know, higher end of medium, but it's between that. I was just wondering if you think that, are there any type of organization that are more encouraged than others to bid? Or, I mean, in other words, can SMEs do it really, or are we again dreaming? is that it happening for SMEs?
Actually, you know, SMEs are one of the backbones of the European economy. So majority of the calls that are out there are actually really aimed at the providing support to the SMEs, whether it's in the field of entrepreneurship education, whether it's in the you know, aspect of developing specific tools or developing specific skills. Again, it is possible. It is somewhere between a dream and reality, what we talked about also in reply to the first question. But if, for example, an SME which is internationally based is maybe already collaborating with another SME or company in one of the European member states, that already opens an opportunity to go further, to explore the potential for the funding, because for what is important, for each and every EU public project, it's the element of cross-European collaboration. If additional international element is bring into it, even better. And second is really to being sure, especially for those sectors such as AI, to ensure that the project is up to the latest trends. So if there is an Australian company, which is an SME, that works in one of those fields, that already maybe has some sort of relationship or contacts within the EU, it can definitely, it's actually definitely even more open. I would say the opportunities are even bigger, but I don't want to preclude bigger companies from looking at it at the calls, but the SMEs, I would say, there are different ways of filtering through the calls, and there are many times those that are aiming both at SMEs and both at a specific field that can be any of those that we already mentioned.
Wonderful. So that's great. So, and also, I think from what you said throughout, I have a sense, and we discussed it before because we're prepared, that basically bidders are more successful if they bid as a team of companies or as a group of companies, right?
Absolutely. So, Christelle, that's really what you said, as we went through it also when we were getting ready for today's session. Really rarely the European calls are aimed at one country companies. That happens really rarely. And it's, as I said, very specific. However, the envelope of the public funding is very big. It's a couple of billions of euros over a period of a couple of years. So again, my invitation is to the companies to always check a specific envelope they are aiming to apply at. However, the idea behind each and every European call is a minimum of 2 companies or 2 organizations, because one organization can be a university, for example, a civil society organization. It's minimum because the EU is the EU funding is composed of the EU member state taxpayers. So therefore, it's important that this cross-country collaboration element is almost always, I would say, but not exclusively, always a prerequisite.
Okay, excellent. So that's really good. I think we've received an interesting question that we'll respond to, and I think we'll move first to the examples. That just to give a bit of a feel of examples of possible calls. And so I think we thought about an SME from Australia, for example, but I don't think it would be remotely different from an Asian company or a US company in advanced manufacturing, in pharma. And so if the ultimate goal is to sell to a European pharma companies, what funding could they look at if I'm an SME?
So basically, there could be different fundings that they are looking at. For example, as you mentioned, so we are talking about an advanced manufacturer working in pharma. So that's definitely first, we are looking into health sector. Secondly, also, when we are looking in the manufacturing, we are looking also on the use of the technologies in the manufacturing process. So we are also looking at AI. We are potentially also looking at green tech and the Green Deal and sustainability element. Maybe, and I'm a bit going out of the comfort zone, maybe there is also an element of education, maybe there is an element of novelty that the Australian SME is bringing to the, maybe let's say a French SME. So there is also maybe an element of cross sectorial, you know, or intersectorial, simply training and education and skill enhancement. One thing, for example, that I noticed, Christelle, as I was getting ready for today's session, is that there is a very strong emphasis that it's put on creation of the so-called ecosystems. The ecosystem that exists at the intersection of the private companies, universities, public organizations, and civil society organization. So within that sphere, especially if that manufacturing comes and tackles the specific, you know, research, it can also be within the framework of the research and development, which if we are coming and looking into Australian companies, for example, Australia is a non-associated country with the Horizon Europe. However, the university, one of the examples that I found in for today is that University of Melbourne and the University of Sydney are Australian partners for the Horizon 2020 initiative that aims to accelerate the research when it comes to the HIV vaccine. So there are ways, and I would definitely maybe also mention one important thing is if a company, international company, of course, looks into expansion to the EU market and potentially opening a subsidiary there and a legal entity, that of course puts them on a completely different standing, and that's something you can help them with, Christelle. Yes.
So maybe that gives me a segue to, because time is running, but a segue to one of the participants' questions. So an Australian hardware manufacturer wanting to launch into the EU, UK, keen to manufacture in the EU, they're thinking that they could potentially set up there. So would there be any suitable funding if you're setting up manufacturing in the EU, and the person or audience member is mentioning the European Innovation Fund as an avenue? Is it a good avenue?
Absolutely. I was just about to say that European Innovation Council is really one of the flagship institutions and flagship initiatives by the European Commission. It's extremely, again, let me preface just by saying that here we are really looking not even into an alphabet, like really looking into one letter of an alphabet. We are not even learning a new language yet or composing. So we are, and I think this is really an excellent question. And it means that also, Christelle, the audience came prepared, which I'm always happy with. I think that, so straightforward reply to this question, of course, I cannot give. Is it, are there necessarily immediate fundings for the manufacturer aiming to establish in the EU? First, as I mentioned at intro, it's important to look into which country the company is looking into to establishing subsidiary. That would be my first. So it can be looked into at a national level of the member state. However, and then second would be to look into the specific field and what the funding and support of the within the field is. I know that sometimes, for example, in Belgium, there can be the entrepreneurs can invite other entrepreneurs, for example, for a visit, for an exploration of the market, and the inviting entrepreneur. So if I am to invite you, Christelle, to come and visit me and maybe do a tour of the different European institutions, I, as an inviting company, assuming the cost, can receive a certain subsidy by, for example, the Belgian government for that exploratory journey. So there might be a similar opportunities in the at the EU level as well. But however, I would say that I would then definitely look into the, as mentioned just before, the ecosystem, the other maybe potential companies and collaborators that the company that's coming to the EU is already maybe having a contact with, because all of them can be a potential partners at a later stage when it comes to the application for the potential EU funding.
So not only, you know, a partner, but also a research partner, a government partner, an educational partner. like extending that ecosystem when you look at it. Okay, so I think the question about, you know, setting up manufacturing and approaching the European Innovation Fund is definitely the way to go. And what you mentioned is also maybe looking at the national level of each European country and see as well what they have in terms of industry. They may have specific scheme of attraction for specific industries.
And if I can add as well, it also depends, for example, within a specific country, maybe there are certain regions when to attract the companies might offer certain benefits, especially if we are talking about areas that are maybe lacking employment opportunities or that are simply aiming to create and foster more international business environment at a local or regional level. That's also something that can be looked into. For example, I know that very often, I mean, I'm originally from Croatia, but I live in Brussels, and Belgium is a small country, and there are a lot of hubs that are really at the border levels, for example, with France or with Netherlands. So those can also be some interesting opportunities to look into.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And then I have another question in regards to food manufacturing and food safety. Have you seen, I mean, we might put you on the spot there. Is that part of the food safety, part of the EU priorities? Have you seen those sectors, food security?
Absolutely. So a common agricultural policy of the European Union is a quite complex one for the Europeans per se. So I would just leave it at that. It's been a bit, especially regarding the so-called CAP, a bit of an interesting period at the member state levels recently. However, having said that, the food safety is absolutely a priority, and definitely it goes within also the sphere of health and the protection. For the EU, the priority of benefiting the European society and the European citizens remains always a priority, and food safety is indeed one of those priorities that can fit also within the health framework and the sustainability framework as well in terms of the goals and opportunities.
Okay. No, I think that's great. Was there another? It's almost up to wrap up, which is unbelievable. If you have anyone has any other question, it's time to ask before we're gonna wrap up. I'm just checking the chat and it's all good. So maybe as a summary, so if I'm a non-EU based business, I can get access to EU funding, providing I am lining up myself with a group of companies or research organization or with a consortium of companies. I can be a subcontractor. I'm a second tier participant. And I can be an expert, or I can be part of that this way. What you mentioned as well is some of the key pillars is green sustainability in every single call, whatever you do as a base. You mentioned AI and cybersecurity, digitization, and did you say health? Did you mention health? Some of it, and then we added food safety as well as one of it. And then SMEs have their special call, the calls from the EU, so they are absolutely welcome to participate, so no barrier for that. And yes, it is important to bid as a group. I think this is the... Anything you would like to add while we are lucky to have you around?
I'm really honored to be here. No, Christelle, you summarized it really well. Again, I would like to go back to what we said just at the introduction. It's important to look at a call case-to-case basis. I want to reassure the attendees here and whoever might be watching the recording of the webinar. There are already quite a few, and I like that you put a highlight on that because research and development is a pillar of the Commission's funding. Partnering with universities, because for example, Australian universities are already familiar and have dipped their toe into the EU funding sphere. Some of them, I think the one from Melbourne has even the headquarters here in, well, not headquarters, I would say branch here in Europe that is active in R&D and can definitely support and provide even further insight into those companies that are interested in partnering and providing ideas for the EU funding project.
So maybe, Antonia, maybe one way for the SMEs, if they look in their own countries and check which universities are already partnering and working, like, for example, in the case of Australia, you have in Horizon 2020, some of the universities involved. I'm sure in AI and cybersecurity, it'd be the same. In the US, universities may be involved in that. And so it is a good tip, I think.
Yes, and it's a great way also, as I mentioned, I mean, education is another of the pillars. Erasmus is one of the flagship programs of the Commission. And this actually, maybe especially for those SMEs that might have, you know, it opens them also opportunities for their own business developments, not only in the EU project, but also for their own future activities as well.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you so much. We are going to wrap up now. I'd like to say that Antonia has kindly prepared a list of links for the participants to be so that you'll receive in the follow-up email. And so she's prepared some links, some portals, and she was kindly offering to potentially either do a second session, go through like a tutorial to go through portals. If anyone is interested to join that session, we could do another session. I'd be very happy. Or there's another way to do it, which is also, you may send us a short recording on how to look at those portals and detect the bids. So thank you so much for your time. I know it's late evening. So glad you could come and join us and talk to the audience. I think you made it, you broke it down very nicely and you're very knowledgeable. So that is very, I'd like to thank you for that.
Thank you for the opportunity, Christelle. It was wonderful to continue this conversation. I hope that the participants found it interesting, inspiring. I will definitely share links and also my email. So if they have questions, they can feel free to direct them to you or directly to me, whatever works for them.
Yes, absolutely. We're going to share your contacts so that they can also reach out to you if they have a specific demand. And so that will be done, which is always great to directly talk to the expert in their field. I'd like to invite everyone to come. So in March, we are not going to do a lab. I'm just going to do the launch of my third book. So everybody's welcome to join. And anyone registering can get a free copy of the book. So that will be from March. April, we have there's a lot of holidays from different parts of the world. So we're skipping, but we are going to do an Exportia Lab in May about distribution and how we do our push and pull, with distributors, European channel partners. So I'd like to thank Antonia again for joining in. Thank you to the audience for joining from LinkedIn, from Zoom, for being here. And also thanks to the people who are listening to the recording. I will see you very soon. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Thank you.